All right, so today we're going to be diving deep into John Green's Looking for Alaska.
Okay.
You sent over a SparkNotes summary
Uh-huh.
and like a really in-depth synopsis from a book summary website.
Yep.
So we're going to use all that to kind of break down the plot
Okay.
and get to the heart of this coming-of-age story.
Sounds good.
We'll do it all in about 9 minutes.
All right.
So Looking for Alaska follows Miles Pudge Halter as he leaves his boring Florida life to attend Culver Creek boarding school
Yeah.
in Alabama.
Mm.
And he's searching for what the poet Francois Rabelais
Okay.
called the great perhaps,
I like that.
a deeper meaning in life.
Yeah.
So right off the bat, the novel is structured as before and after,
Yeah.
foreshadowing a major event that changes everything.
Right.
Can you walk us through the before section where Pudge is just settling into Culver Creek?
Absolutely. So the before section focuses on Pudge navigating this new world.
Okay.
He meets his roommate, Chip,
Yeah.
the Colonel Martin, who becomes his close friend and introduces him to the school's social scene.
All right.
They get into some trouble,
Yeah.
including a prank war with the weekday warriors,
Oh, no.
the rich kids who go home every weekend.
Classic
Yeah.
pranks rivalries. It sounds like classic high school shenanigans.
It is.
What are some of the pranks they pull?
Well, they use fireworks hair dye
Okay.
and even hack into the dean's computer
What?
to send fake bad grades to the weekday warriors' parents.
Wow.
Pretty elaborate stuff.
They took it up a notch.
Yeah, they did.
Okay. But, of course, the central figure in all this is Alaska Young.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about her?
Alaska is the enigmatic girl who captivates Pudge from the start.
Hmm.
She's intelligent, rebellious,
Okay.
and unpredictable, constantly pushing boundaries.
All right.
Pudge is drawn to her mystery and allure.
There's more to her than meets the eye, right? In the early chapters, we see glimpses of a darker side to Alaska.
Exactly. Alaska has a troubled past
Okay.
and a tendency for self-destructive behavior. She struggles with guilt over her mother's death,
Oh, wow.
which she witnessed as a child.
Oh.
This trauma deeply affects her and influences her actions throughout the story.
Right. So we have this complex character
Yeah.
who's both captivating and troubled.
Mm-hmm.
How does her relationship with Pudge develop in these early chapters?
Their connection is intense but complicated.
Okay.
Alaska has a boyfriend, Jake,
Mm-hmm.
and her unpredictable moods make it difficult for Pudge to decipher her true feelings.
So there's a definite sense of romantic tension between them.
There is.
But Pudge also has other relationships at Culver Creek.
He does. Alaska actually sets him up with Laura,
Okay.
a Romanian girl.
All right.
Their first date is a complete disaster.
Oh, no.
Pudge even throws up on her.
Oh, my gosh.
But surprisingly, they end up dating for a while, although Pudge admits he doesn't feel a strong connection.
So a classic love triangle is forming.
You got it.
In the midst of all this, the prank war continues.
Yes.
And there's a particularly memorable incident
Yeah.
where Alaska and the Colonel pull off an elaborate scheme to get back at the weekday warriors.
Right. This is the pre-prank for the big one they plan for later.
Okay.
They buy a bunch of fake blood
Okay.
and stage a scene to make the weekday warriors think they've seriously injured each other.
Wow.
The Eagle, who's the dean of students,
Okay.
goes ballistic. But Alaska and the Colonel manage to pull it off without getting caught.
That's intense.
It is.
It sounds like Alaska thrives on this kind of mischief and pushing the limits.
Yeah, she does.
But her recklessness also foreshadows the tragic turn of events that's about to unfold.
Absolutely.
So the before section culminates in a pivotal night where Alaska wakes up in a panic,
Yeah.
claiming she's forgotten something important and needs to leave immediately.
Right.
And this is where the tension really starts to build.
Yeah.
What happens next?
Despite knowing she's been drinking,
Oh, no.
Pudge and the Colonel help her sneak out.
Okay.
They distract the Eagle so Alaska can drive away in her car.
And this decision obviously has devastating consequences.
It does.
The next morning, the Eagle calls an assembly and delivers the news that Alaska has died in a car accident.
Right.
And that's where the before section ends, marking a turning point in the novel and in the lives of Pudge and his friends.
So the after section shifts the novel's focus
Okay.
to the aftermath of Alaska's death.
Right.
Pudge and the Colonel are consumed by grief
Yeah.
and guilt, blaming themselves for letting her drive away that night. The mystery surrounding her death becomes central to the story.
You mentioned that John Green drops clues that kind of hint at suicide.
Yeah.
What are some of those clues?
So in the before section,
Okay.
Alaska's reading The General in His Labyrinth by Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
Okay.
And we see her underline a passage, "How will I ever get out of this labyrinth?"
Mm-hmm.
After her death, when Pudge is looking through the book,
Okay.
He finds another phrase underlined on a different page, straight and fast.
Whoa.
Yeah, it feels ominous.
Yeah, that's pretty clear foreshadowing
Right.
of Alaska's fatal car crash.
Yeah.
It definitely points towards suicide.
Uh-huh.
Do Pudge and the Colonel pick up on these clues?
They do. They find that underlined phrase and immediately think it's a message
Okay.
about how she wanted to die.
Right.
The police report confirms that she drove straight into a police car
Oh, wow.
that had its lights and siren on.
Jeez.
So it wasn't an accident in the typical sense.
Right, so if it wasn't a typical accident,
Yeah.
does the police report officially label it as a suicide?
It doesn't. The report just states the facts
Okay.
without speculating about Alaska's intentions.
Okay.
And that's what drives Pudge and the Colonel to start their own investigation.
What steps do they take in their investigation?
Right.
I mean, it must be incredibly difficult to try to piece together what happened
Yeah.
while also dealing with their grief.
They start by interviewing the police officer who was at the scene of the accident,
Okay.
hoping to get more insight into what he saw. They also try to recreate the circumstances of Alaska's death
Wow.
to see if she could have reacted in time to avoid the crash.
Okay.
They even steal a breathalyzer
What?
to test if she was too drunk to swerve.
Wow. Their dedication to uncovering the truth speaks volumes
Yeah.
about the impact Alaska had on their lives.
Yeah.
What did they discover through their investigation?
Some of their findings support the suicide theory.
Okay.
The police officer's account suggests that Alaska made no attempt to avoid the collision,
Mm-hmm.
but then they uncover some conflicting information.
What kind of information?
Yeah.
Does it challenge the idea that Alaska intentionally took her own life?
They learn that Alaska had made plans to call her boyfriend Jake later that night,
Okay.
which seems unlikely if she was planning to die.
Mm-hmm.
And later, when Pudge and the Colonel finally talk to Jake,
Yeah.
he reveals that Alaska had been happy in the days leading up to her death.
So the mystery deepens.
It
We
does.
have these contradicting pieces of information that make it difficult to definitively conclude whether it was suicide or a tragic accident.
Right.
How do Pudge and the Colonel deal with this uncertainty?
They struggle. They desperately want a clear answer,
Yeah.
but the investigation just leaves them with more questions.
Okay.
Feeling lost and frustrated,
Yeah.
they decide to shift their focus and plan a prank in Alaska's memory.
A prank.
Yeah.
Seems a bit odd given the circumstances.
Yeah,
But I guess it's their way of honoring her memory.
exactly. They decide to use an idea Alaska had left behind, hiring a male stripper,
Oh my God.
disguised as a psychologist for the school's Speakers Day event.
That's so Alaska.
Yeah.
It's outrageous, but also a fitting tribute to her rebellious spirit.
It is.
Oh.
And the prank itself offers a moment of comic relief.
Yeah.
The otherwise somber after section.
Right.
But even as they find humor in this act of rebellion,
Yeah.
the grief and the mystery of Alaska's death continue to weigh on them.
It sounds like they're reaching a point where they need some kind of resolution, even if it means accepting that they may never know for sure what happened.
And that resolution eventually comes,
Okay.
though not in the way they expect.
Okay.
Remember the straight and fast phrase.
Yeah.
It actually leads to a crucial discovery.
So.
Well, as they're trying to make sense of that phrase,
Okay.
Takumi, another friend from their group,
Yeah.
points out something significant.
What's up?
He reminds them that the day Alaska died was the anniversary of her mother's death.
Oh, wow. What a crucial detail.
Yeah.
Do they immediately make the connection?
It takes a while for it to click.
Okay.
But eventually, they realize that Alaska was likely driving to her mother's grave that night.
Oh.
She was probably in a rush, lost in thought.
Yeah.
And that's why she didn't see the police car in time.
That realization must have hit them hard.
It does.
It's tragic, but it also provides a possible explanation for her seemingly reckless driving.
It does.
Yeah.
The mystery of whether it was suicide or an accident remains unresolved. In a definitive sense, but this new understanding helps Pudge and the Colonel find a degree of closure.
So they come to terms with the fact that they may never know for sure why Alaska died,
Right.
but they find solace in the idea that she was likely on her way to honor her mother.
Exactly.
That's-
And with that realization, the focus of the story shifts again,
Okay.
this time to how Pudge and his friends cope with their grief and try to move forward with their lives.
That leads us to the final stages of the after section
Yes.
and ultimately to the ending of the novel. So as we wrap up our deep dive into looking for Alaska,
Yeah.
it feels like we've gone through this whole emotional journey with Pudge, right?
Right.
From the excitement of starting at a new school to the devastation of losing Alaska and grappling with the mystery of her death.
Yeah.
But ultimately, this is a story about how they all cope with that loss
Yes.
and how it shapes them.
Exactly. In these final chapters, we see the characters processing their grief in different ways. The Colonel throws himself into his studies, determined to make something of himself and honor Alaska's memory.
Okay.
Takumi finds solace in his art,
Yeah.
expressing his emotions through his rap music.
And what about Pudge?
Right.
He seemed to be the most deeply affected by Alaska's death.
Yeah.
How does he move forward?
Pudge's journey is really at the heart of the novel's message.
Okay.
Remember how he was obsessed with finding the great, perhaps?
Yeah.
He thought it existed somewhere outside of suffering,
Yeah.
some extraordinary experience.
Right.
But losing Alaska forces him to confront the reality that suffering is an inevitable part of life.
And that realization leads him to embrace the labyrinth, right?
Yeah.
Instead of trying to escape it, he chooses to live within its complexities.
Precisely. He understands that there's no escaping the ups and downs of life,
Yeah.
the joy and the pain. And it's in those difficult moments, those
Yeah.
moments of suffering, that we truly grow and learn.
So Looking for Alaska isn't just a tragic love story. It's a story about accepting life's complexities
Yeah.
and finding meaning, even in the face of loss.
It is. And it leaves us with some profound questions to consider.
Okay, what are those?
Like, how do we cope with the loss of someone we love?
Yeah.
And what does it mean to truly live? To embrace the labyrinth instead of constantly seeking an escape.
Those are questions that resonate far beyond the pages of this book.
Right.
They're questions we all grapple with at some point in our lives.
Yeah.
And Looking for Alaska offers a powerful and moving exploration of these themes.
It does. And it reminds us that even in the midst of tragedy,
Okay.
there's beauty to be found in the connections we make and the memories we hold on to.
So as we finish our deep dive into this coming-of-age story,
Yeah.
I think the takeaway for you listening is to reflect on what your own great perhaps might be. Will you seek to escape the labyrinth of life's challenges?
Yeah.
Or will you embrace the journey with all its twists and turns?
Perhaps Looking for Alaska will offer some guidance as you navigate your own path.
That's it for our deep dive today. Thanks for joining us.